Africa's G20 presidency comes at a historic moment, one where global systems are being reshaped and local economies are struggling to recover. But it's also a time of opportunity, especially for Africa's small businesses. Babalwa Ngonyama, CEO of NextGen Africa, joins us to explore how innovation and global partnerships can drive inclusive growth. Babalwa, appreciate your time this afternoon. Now, why is the G20 presidency a critical moment for for Africa and its SMMEs?
It's very critical, actually, because it links Africa with the globe, which is quite important. We want to be strong players in the global space, and this is an opportunity for us now to showcase and ensure that we play a meaningful role. And we can only do that if we work together, we work in unity, and we are the true Africa that we want to be.
So it's an interesting point that you raise there, Babalwa, which is the importance of working together, because it's not as simple as saying to global business that Africa is ready to do business when on the continent itself, I mean, you've got the African Free Continental Trade area, which is not scaling in the manners in which it should. So what needs to be done in order to achieve that?
There are a few things here that we need to look at quite carefully. Firstly, the will to work together is quite important. Our own attitude starts with that attitude first. Number two, we must reduce and remove, in fact, the trade barriers amongst ourselves. The fact that it's actually cheaper to sell to a European than selling to Tanzania or selling to DRC. It's hard to understand. You know, as Africans, we can't sell to each other at a reasonable price because of tariffs. That's problem number one that we are facing as a continent. Number two, the compliance issues that we have in our continent, starting from our own country in South Africa, they are not bearable. They are very, very hard, in particular for small businesses. They are meant for someone who has a strong balance sheet and somebody who has lots of resources. It does not help them to strengthen and build a resilient entrepreneur and an SMME that we need in this country. So those few things, even digitization, is lacking currently. If you go to Europe, if you go to the US, they are far advanced. We have a lot, and we actually have young people who can help us digitize as quickly as possible. And that's what we'll be doing at the NextGen on the 11th and the 12th and 17th now in June. You know, we will be talking to fintech players, the young players who are willing to digitize Africa and ensure that then we have the right tools to play meaningfully in the global space.
Babalwa, you touched on the issue around the balance sheet and certainly the amount of capital that is required to scale businesses on the African continent, in South Africa in particular, and the numerous challenges obviously associated with trying to get funding and access to financial resource. How do you suggest that needs to be dealt with as a starting point?
There are a few ways we need to look at that. Number one is access to markets, understanding your markets. You must have a customer, effectively, someone who's going to buy your products. And that part, sometimes as entrepreneurs and SMME, we don't do it well. For example, if you sell a simple things like a mill to the DRC, you take what we have in South Africa and you sell it in bulk in that country, and only to find out they don't like it. South African mill is fine compared to the rough mill that they like in the DRC. Or even if you go to Nigeria, they want a different kind of product than what we spend. So we need first to understand our markets as SMMEs and entrepreneurs. Then once you have the market itself, it's not very difficult to approach a bank and get the funding. So we then need a political environment on top of that assists us. We lose a lot of money in these countries because of the instability politically. And there is no bank that is going to put its money in an area that is not stable, because you're almost guaranteed to lose your money in many ways. So what we are trying to do at the NextGen conference on the 11th and 12th, we are bringing economic policymakers, we are bringing banks as well themselves, trying to find a solution on this matter as to how do we make it easier politically and also ensure that the banks follow them as a result. All the banks will be there, your Absa's, your Standard Bank. We even have the Afrexim Bank from our continent. And the objective is to engage the entrepreneurs and SMEs in the room and understand their desires and needs, and also assist them to prepare. They must prepare for funding. As an SMME, when you go to the bank, there are certain things, there are certain basics you need to understand. And we do that as Scenario. We prepare SMMEs, we mentor them, we coach them, we walk the road with them to the banks, and we also assist them with seed funding, because sometimes the critical point with the banks, they would say to you, contribute so much, put 10%, then we will give you 90%, or put 20%. And that's where sometimes we come in and help you with that 20%. We walk that road together, go to the bank, we ensure that once you have a market where you can sell, then you are able then to sell to that market you are well-resourced to do so.
So in a few days' time, you've got this conference and you've talked about the impact of young people in digitising, that they're ready, good and ready to assist in various digitisation processes. Now, Africa, with almost 70% young people, is the youngest continent on the planet, and obviously proffers a huge market for many brands and businesses and consumers across the globe. How important are young people in these conversations that you're having?
They are extremely important. In fact, we will be having a lot of them in the room. What we are also doing, we are bringing fintech players from the UK, from the Netherlands, from UAE, so that they can collaborate with our own young players. What we are doing again is to empower our young players by bringing in funders. Remember, there are companies who are willing to fund youth so that they can expand on their ideas even further. So it's quite crucial then that when we want to see innovation in our country, we must empower our youth. We must give them the tools to move forward. Otherwise, if they are constrained, we might as well forget about participating in this whole digital transformation that the world is talking about today. But if you definitely, we are taking a very clear action as Scenario in ensuring that we uplift and elevate our young entrepreneurs.
Babalwa, as we wrap, what practical policies would support inclusive SMME growth?
We need policies that really reduce the burden of compliance first and foremost, for entrepreneurs. That's number one. Number two, we need policies that are going to enable and welcome digitization. Currently, we do have policies that makes it very difficult to introduce innovation in our continent. So innovation, it must be something that is welcomed. It needs a very strong environment that is positive towards innovation.
Babalwa Ngonyama, CEO of NextGen Africa, appreciate your time speaking to us as South Africa's current G20 presidency, and obviously this historic moment and what it means for business, particularly small to medium enterprises, and the need for policy to align with growth of this sector.